the relationship of Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. Let's be honest, nobody really knows what Donald Trump is thinking, not even Washington. So what chance does Westminster or the Starmer government have of knowing? In the past couple of weeks, that question has stopped being a hypothetical and become very real. The Trump-led US launched strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, and the aftershocks have left Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer looking, well, stranded. This is the story unfolding, a story of a strange, awkward, and very one-sided relationship between two leaders on opposite sides of the Atlantic, and maybe even opposite pages. As recently as Friday evening, UK officials were convinced there was a path to diplomacy. Trump had said he'd make a decision on Iran in 2 weeks. That looked like a window for talks. Then, boom, literally, Britain was notified shortly before the missiles flew. There was no consultation, no coordination, no Diego Garcia base involved, and no role for Britain. Why? Legal complications. Attorney General Richard Hermer reportedly advised the UK involvement might breach international law, and Starmer, a former human rights lawyer who opposed the Iraq War, wouldn't want to be anywhere near another questionable intervention. So the UK wasn't involved. But Starmer hasn't condemned the action either. He's stuck in a diplomatic no man's land. Not a participant, not a critic, just there. For months, Downing Street has quietly pitched Starmer as a bridge to the White House, the link between Trump's America and Europe, but the events of this past week have blown that narrative apart. The UK wasn't influential. They weren't informed early. Predictions made by Starmer and his team didn't come true. One particular example stands out. On June 17th, during the G7 summit in Canada, Sir Keir Starmer was interviewed by Sky News' Beth Rigby. She questioned him about President Trump's recent remarks suggesting that something is going to happen in the Middle East, noting that Trump had convened the Situation Room and issued a warning on Truth Social, writing, "Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. This is serious. We are closer than ever before." When asked whether he had any insight into what was unfolding, Starmer responded, "Well, I don't think you should read into that as an American attack is imminent." Here's a clip of that exchange.
Prime Minister, President Trump said to me yesterday that something will happen on the Middle East. He's convening the Situation Room. He's told 10 million residents of Tehran to evacuate the city. That's not de-escalation. It sounds like an American attack could be imminent. Do you know what's going on?
Well, I don't think you should read into that an American attack is imminent.
He's calling the Security Council together.
We had a 2-hour discussion with the President last night on the Middle East, on this very issue, and as a result of that, the G7 statement came out very clear about the risk of the nuclear programme in Iran, Israel's right to self-defence, and the need to de-escalate across the region, including in Gaza.
So you don't think an attack is in his mind, or US joining Israel? You don't think that's in his
the wording
mind?
of the G7 statement, I think, speaks for itself, and I sat next to the President for that 2-hour discussion as we were working through not just the issues but the statement itself.
Then, just 5 days later, on the morning of June 22nd, the United States launched a surprise airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities. The operation targeted key sites, including Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, using B-2 stealth bombers and Tomahawk missiles. The strike was conducted without advance warning to allies and marked a major escalation in US-Iran tensions. So now the idea of the UK as a key player in Trump world looks more like wishful thinking than strategic reality. And that matters, not just symbolically, but historically. Traditionally, the United Kingdom has been considered America's #1 defense ally, or at the very least, its closest and most enduring. The term special relationship is more than just diplomatic jargon. It reflects decades of deep cooperation across military strategy, intelligence sharing, nuclear policy, and shared global leadership. But in this moment, that special bond is showing signs of strain. The US acted alone. The UK was sidelined, and Starmer, despite Downing Street's attempts to present him as a diplomatic bridge to Trump, was left out of the loop.
On Tuesday morning, you said how important de-escalation was. This was at the G7. You told me you didn't think a US attack was imminent. You sat next to President Trump at the G7 dinner of leaders. You said nothing the president said suggests he's about to get involved in this conflict. On the contrary, here we are. He has struck Iran. He's done exactly the opposite of what you said you thought he was going to do. Do you feel foolish, frustrated that he's not listening?
Well, it's clearly a fast-moving situation, and there's been a huge amount of discussions in the days since the G7 ended, and the US has now taken the action to alleviate the threat.
In fairness to Starmer and the UK government, Trump can be deeply unpredictable, even for those closest to him. Just days before the strike on Wednesday, June 18th, 2025, President Trump addressed reporters at the White House about the potential use of bombers against Iran's underground nuclear facilities. When pressed on whether an attack was imminent, he responded with characteristic ambiguity. You don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. It may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Mr. President, have you given answered questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question. Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that...
Statements like that make it difficult for any foreign government, let alone a new British administration, accurately read or respond to rapidly shifting signals from Washington. But while Trump's unpredictability may explain the confusion abroad, it doesn't shield Starmer from scrutiny at home. Domestically, Starmer's Labour government has been left in a political no man's land, neither backing the American strike on Iran nor openly condemning it. On the right, conservatives like Kemi Badenoch have criticised Iran openly and strongly backed US strikes. She claims Iran directly threatens UK security, a far bolder line Starmer has taken. Then there's Nigel Farage. At a Reform UK conference, Farage voiced strong support for Trump's action. Starmer isn't just feeling heat from the right. The left wing of his own party and the broader progressive movement is deeply uncomfortable with how this has unfolded. The Green Party has condemned the strikes outright, and Starmer's cautious stance risks looking like silence at a time when people are demanding clarity. This is happening while Labour is already fighting eternal battles over welfare cuts. One of Starmer's own government whips resigned 2 weeks ago. A rebellion is brewing. And then there's the public opinion wildcard. Trump remains hugely unpopular in the UK. Even if people get that Starmer needs to maintain relations for economic reasons, it's still a bitter pill to swallow. Let's talk optics. The UK government's main message has been, we weren't involved. Well, that's true. But strategically, it's also a bit fence-sitting. In a moment of global significance, Britain looked irrelevant. Not supporting, not opposing, just sidelined. Even the government's own ministers have struggled to clarify the UK's position. In a tense LBC interview, Armed Forces Minister Luke Pollard was asked 7 times by Nick Ferrari whether the UK supports or opposes the US military action on Iran. And each time, he dodged the question. Instead of giving a straight answer, Pollard emphasised that the UK wasn't involved in the strikes and reiterated vague support for de-escalation. Here's the interview.
Yes, my question was, Minister, is the United Kingdom opposed to the action we saw on the weekend? It's a yes or no.
Well, that's not one for me to comment on. We've been involved with...
But you're the Armed Forces Minister. Why would you not have a view on armed intervention, as it were, in Iran?
Well, as one of our deep security partners, we keep a regular dialogue with the United States. The US administration has been clear for some time that they were keeping all options on the table to deal with...
it's a simple one, Minister. Are we for or against the American activity on the weekend? For or against?
Well, the American activity has now happened. They've taken those steps to deal with the threat. And what we have, as a country, what we have been focused on over the past few weeks... You don't know whether we're supportive,
whether we support or oppose it. You're not clear as to whether we support or oppose the action.
Well,
am I hearing correctly that the Armed Forces Minister...
What we're focusing on is the diplomatic solution that resolves this crisis.
I just want to clarify that the Armed Forces Minister for His Majesty's government doesn't know whether he supports or opposes American activity on the weekend, our supposedly closest ally, and you don't have a view.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Nick. What I'm saying
is it support or opposition? Where are we?
So our focus, Nick, on this one is on the diplomatic solution. The US have taken the action that they felt was necessary to alleviate the threat that Iran poses.
Minister, you're a bright bloke. You're not answering the question, are you, sir? I'm asking whether we support or oppose what Donald Trump is doing, and you won't tell me. Or you can't tell me, I don't know.
What does this all say about the so-called special relationship between the UK and the US? Not much, at least not anymore. Trump says he likes Britain, likes the monarchy, likes Sir Keir Starmer. Even, he's praised King Charles and often spoke with deep admiration for Queen Elizabeth II. During his 2019 state visit to the UK, Trump described meeting the Queen as a great honour and later said she was a great woman respected around the world and meeting her was the most special part of the trip. After her passing, he remarked that she reminded him of his mother and called her an incredible woman. And that warmth hasn't just been reserved for the royal family. Trump has also had surprisingly kind words for Sir Keir Starmer himself. Despite the political gulf between them, Donald Trump and Sir Keir Starmer have exchanged notably courteous remarks in public. During a 2024 interview, Trump referred to Starmer as a smart guy and someone I could work with, surprising many who expected a more combative tone. Starmer, for his part, struck a measured tone when asked about Trump, stating he would work with whoever the American people elect, and calling the US-UK relationship bigger than one leader. Their face-to-face interactions have been limited, but during brief diplomatic encounters, both men appeared cordial and pragmatic.